Welcome back, and we're delighted to be joined over the phone by Dr. Adel Hamza, tourism expert. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Hamza, how do you see the significance of the Grand Egyptian Museum, which will be inaugurated soon here in Egypt, and what are some of the main attractions or exhibits in the Grand Egyptian Museum, in your opinion?
Okay. Actually, opening the Grand Egyptian Museum, besides that this season is the expectation is very high, that we are expecting, we are forecasting a lot of tourists to come from Europe and the United States. So besides that, it said that the Egyptian Museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum, might be opening on next November. It's not quite sure, but this is what they are saying right now. Of course, this museum, which is considered the biggest Egyptian or the biggest museum all over the world, we are talking about 500,000 square meters as a museum, which is going to be the largest museum in the world and the largest museum for the Egyptian archaeology and the Egyptian monuments. The Egyptian Museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum, is actually going to be consisted of different and various parts. Part of it is the cultural one, which is the museum itself, which is going to be consisted of like 6 divisions. One of them is the entrance in the museum. The entrance of the museum itself is considered as one section, and it's going to be considered as a unique museum, just the entrance, which is having right now the statue of Ramses II and some other 5 big statues. The second part of the museum is going to be for the group or the monuments of Tutankhamun, 5,000 pieces together in one place for King Tutankhamun. And then the third part is going to be another museum for like 75 pieces, large pieces of the monuments of Egypt. And then another part for different monuments for different eras in Egypt. And then the 6th part is going to be another collections for some of the huge and large monuments found in Egypt, like the solar boats found beside the pyramid. I don't have the time to talk about every part in the museum, but it's going to be a really an international event.
Right. Sir, how can we make a comparison between the Grand Egyptian Museum and the Egyptian Museum in Tahrir? What's the difference between the two museums, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there is no comparison actually between this one and this one, because the old Egyptian museum has its own test, because the building itself of the Tahrir Museum, the building itself is considered as archaeology, as a monument, because the building itself dates back more than 150 years. Mariette, when he opened or when he started to build this museum, it was the building itself. It's very old comparing with the buildings in Europe and the States. So the building itself, the walls of the building itself, it's considered as something unique. Plus the monuments which is going to be there, which is not going to be moved from this museum, it's going to be staying there as it is, as the whole traditional people from 150 years used to see the pieces of this museum. It's going to be the same, and it's going to be opened as usual, so the people can go to this one and the other people can go to the Grand Egyptian Museum. And of course, the visitors who are going here and there are not going to find any similarity between the pieces, because the Egyptian monuments, it's actually a lot. The taste of the Grand Egyptian Museum is going to be different, because they have there everything. They have their halls for conferences and events. They have their food courts for international and local brands for food. So they have something for entertainment for the families who wants to go to the museum, and at the same time to have an entertainment for the families.
Yeah.
They have a mall, commercial mall. They will have a cinema and theater. So this is another taste. This is something not compared with any other museum in the world.
Right. How large is the Grand Egyptian Museum in terms of total area?
It's 500,000 square meters. You can imagine 500,000 square meters. Not only the museum and the surrounding other places which is going to have an activity there. So this area there will be an international mark in the world tourism when it's going to open. And they're saying that opening the Egyptian museum is not going to last for 2 or 3 days. It's going to last for like from a week to 10 days. And a lot of presidents and kings are going to be invited from all over the world. Of course, the new opera, which is going to be there, of Tutankhamun, is going to be exhibited also there in this museum when they open it. It will be an international event, actually. And the museum itself will be a significant all over the world. Because everyone will dream to come to the pyramids and to come to the area of the pyramids and the museum. So,
right. What are the advanced or new technologies used to enhance the visitor experience at the Grand Egyptian Museum?
You know, all over the world, the technology which is used in all over the world, the advanced technology more than this technology is going to be used in this museum. Also, the exhibition of the monument itself and the pieces itself, it's going to be in another way, using the lights, using the mechanical things to how to show these pieces and how to see this pieces from all corners, from all aspects, which is going to be not like the other museums, the traditional museums like the old museum. Everybody right now, museum dates back to 150 years. So we're talking about the 23rd century. So all the technology all over the world is taken from different museums is going to be applied there in this museum. Really, it's going to be something very, very unique.
How does the Grand Egyptian Museum contribute to the preservation and conservation of ancient Egyptian artifacts?
Of course, it's very good significance. It's going to give a very good significance about this, because this will show actually better the Egyptian history and the Egyptian civilization. Will give the people and the visitors a new vision of this civilization. So it's going to be really good for Egypt, good for the tourism of Egypt, and it started actually from now, because all the people all over the world now, they ask first thing about the Grand Egyptian Museum, when it's going to open, how the people can book. They started already trials right now to allow some a number of visits every day. And the people are really amazed with what they are saying, which is, they are just opening one part of the museum, which is the entrance and the garden only. And the people are amazed of this. So you can imagine what's going to happen when they open the complete project.
Yeah. But does the Grand Egyptian Museum have a certain role to play with regards to preservation and conservation of the ancient Egyptian artifacts?
Of course, it's going to be different. It's going to be give a bigger picture about the art of Egypt, the ancient art of Egypt.
Right. Sir, can you tell us about the role of museums, in your opinion, in promoting cultural and educational awareness among children in Egypt? And how far would the museums contribute in planting the feeling of belonging in children and youth?
This is a very good question, because I forget actually to tell you about, there is a special section for children in the Grand Egyptian Museum. It's going to have a special section or a special division in the museum itself, separate museum for the kids and for the children to see the Egyptian monuments, the Egyptian civilization in another ways, using the media, using the pictures, using the movies, using all this technology to attract the children to come to the museum and think about the civilization.
Yeah. In the past, schools used to organize school trips to archaeological sites. What was the significance of these trips to children and enhancing their sense of belonging, of course? And do you think that schools will be able to organize more of these trips again?
Absolutely, absolutely, you are right. Right now, I know that it's stopped a little bit after the COVID-19 and the last period, but this school trips are very, very important, of course, to build the reality of the children to the country, to the history of the country, to the national civilization, which is going to be really very good role, or playing very good role in enhancing the reality of the people and planting them the loyalty for the country and give them a very good background about the country and make them proud of this country. And I think in the Grand Egyptian Museum, they are also going to arrange or to apply some rules for the children when they come to this visit. They actually put in consideration this school visits, and they are doing very good preparations for that.
Right.
In terms also of entertainment for the children, which is going to be, nice thing to see, not making them feel bored about just coming to monuments and see statues. So it's going to be very good.
Right. Moving on from museums and the Grand Egyptian Museum to the tourism in general, and how do you assess the state's efforts in boosting tourism in Egypt?
This is, of course, very, very good questions because, in Egypt right now, we have no chance, another chance better than tourism to work on. And the state's actually giving very, very good attention to that sector. Yeah. And of course, we're expecting more and more to come, but at least this effort right now is really encouraging. The tourists started to come to Egypt. They are hungry to come to Egypt after the COVID-19 and after, the stop of these activities for a while. We're expecting this year, for the first time, we're expecting or forecasting to have 10 million tourists in Egypt this year. I think the next quarter, which is starting from this month, is going to be really very good and very important quarter to show or to give us an indication or forecast about the Egyptian tourism this year.
Right. Sir, Minister of Tourism Ahmed Isa said that Egypt received more than 7 million tourists during the first half of 2023. Now, how do you assess the tourist inflow into the country, and do you believe that classical tourism is back on track?
Actually, classical tourism is still the backbone of the tourism of Egypt. But the good thing also this year that we had a lot of tourists, or another market for tourism, which is tourism of beaches like Alamein City. Which what happened in Alamein City actually this year, we didn't expect that. The attractions, the Alamein City attracted or grabbed all the tourists, the Arab tourists from Cairo this season. So we can imagine that in this season, only in Alamein, they had like 3 million tourists in Alamein.
Yeah.
Just from May until the end of August. Yes. This is very good, significant, and we are forecasting next year with another better preparation. We're going to attract a lot of tourists from all the Middle Eastern areas.
Right, Mr. Adel Hamza, tourist expert. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. And dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Cairo Local Time. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.